All right, so here we're going to be looking at factorising, and factorising is the opposite of expanding brackets. So expanding brackets is where you take something like this and then multiply out the brackets and work out that in this case the answer would be 2x plus 2. Factorising is when you take an expression like this and then put it into brackets. So it's the reverse. It's the reverse process. So let's have a look at a couple of examples. We'll start with an expression like 4a plus 2. If we need to put it in brackets, then we need to find, the first thing we need to find is the number that's going to go outside the brackets. And the number that goes outside the brackets is the biggest thing you can find that goes into both parts of whatever you're factorising. So in this case, both of these parts are even. We've got 4a and we've got 2. So they're both even, which means 2 goes into both of them. So that's going to go outside the bracket. Now to find out the two terms that are going to go inside the bracket, I need to think about what do I multiply by 2 to get this first term. So what do I multiply by 2 to get 4a? Well, I can multiply it by 2 to get the 4, and multiply it by 2a to get the 4a. So can you see that if we multiply the 2 by the 2a, we do get the original term that we started with, 4a. So that's the first term in our bracket. And the second term in our bracket, we do the same thing. What do I multiply by 2 to get 2? 1. So that's my factorised version of what I started with. And if you want, you can do a quick check by expanding the bracket and seeing if you do end up with what you should, because it's what you started with in the question. So 2 times 2a is 4a, and 2 times 1 is 2. So because the expression that we made, this one, expands to give the same as what we started with, it must be the right answer. We'll do some more. So let's have another one. Let's have 16x plus 12y. So again, to find the number that goes outside the bracket, I need to find the biggest thing that goes into 16x and 12y. Well, 16 and 12 are both even, so I could take 2 outside the bracket, but there is something bigger. 4 goes into both 16x and 12y. So 4 is going to come outside the bracket, and now I have to think about what do I multiply by 4 to get 16x? Well, I have to multiply it by 4 to get the 16, and then by x to get the x. And then again, a quick check, 4 times 4x, yeah, it's 16x, good. Plus, what do I multiply by 4 to get 12y? The answer is 3y. I multiply by 3 to get the 12 and y to get the y. So that's the factorised version. But again, if you want, you can do a little check, which is not part of your actual working out. It's just a check to see if you've got the right answer. 4 times 4x is 16x, and 4 times 3y is 12y. Yeah, so my check thinks that I did get the right answer because it is the same as what we started with. Right, let's have a look at one or two more. Let's have one where there are a bit more letters involved. So 9x squared plus 6x. So what's different about this one is that it's not just a number that's going to come outside the bracket, because they have more than just a number in common. But let's start with a number. Biggest thing that goes into 9 and 6 is 3, but they also have an x in common, just one x, because this has got an x squared, so it's got like 2 x's in it, and this has got 1 x in it, so they share an x. So that's what goes outside the bracket. Right, now what do I multiply by 3x to get 9x squared? Well, I multiply the 3 by 3 to get 9, and the x by the x by another x to get the x squared. So what do I multiply by 3x to get 9x squared? The answer is actually 3x. And then what do I multiply 3x by to get 6x? 2. I just need to double it, because 3x times 2 is 6x. So that's that one factorised. And again, we'll do our little check just to make sure. 3x times 3x is 9x squared, and 3x times 2 is 6x, which is what we started with, so my answer is probably right. I think I just want to show you a wrong answer, or at least an answer that's not finished, and then I'll give you some questions to have a go at. So if we take 8ab plus 2a squared. So if I look for something that goes into both of these terms, you might think 2, because 2 goes into 8 and 2 goes into 2, so we can take 2 outside the bracket. Now what do I multiply by 2 to get 8ab? I multiply it by 4ab, because is 4ab times 2 is 8ab. And what do I multiply by 2 to get a squared? The answer is just a squared. Sorry, I might have misspoke there. What do I multiply by 2 to get 2a squared? The answer is a squared. Now that is factorised, and if I expand it, I would get back to my original answer, but it's not fully factorised because I didn't find the biggest thing that goes into both parts of my original expression. And we can tell that because there's still something else these things in the bracket have in common. They still have an a in common. So I didn't take the biggest thing I could have outside the bracket. So let's give that another try. As well as having 2 in common, they also have a in common. So it should have been 2a that goes outside the bracket. And now we can factorise fully. I multiply the 2 by 4 to get the 8, and I have to multiply the a by b to get ab. So 2a times 4b gives 8ab. And I multiply the 2a by a to get 2a squared. Right, so that's a few examples. I do notice that I've used plus signs in all of my examples, but it would be just the same as if you had a negative. You know, if I just swap out these pluses for minuses, then the answer is still true, still correct. But here are some questions for you to have a go at. If you want to, you can pause the video here and give them a try, or you can just keep watching as I talk through the answers. So pause here if you want to have a go, and I'm going to talk through. Right, 12a plus 18. What's the biggest thing that goes into 12a and 18? Well, they're both even, so 2 goes into them both, but the biggest thing that goes into them both is 6. So what do I multiply by 6 to get 12a? I have to multiply it by 2a. And what do I multiply by 6 to get 18? I have to multiply by 3. And we'll do our little check by expanding our answer and seeing if we get back to what we started with. 6 times 2a is 12a, and 6 times 3 is 18. So because we did get the right answer, because we did get, when we expanded our answer, we did get the same as what we started with, so our answer must be right. And now we'll do this last one. Biggest thing that goes into 4xy and 6x. Well, the 4 and the 6, biggest thing that goes into them is 2, but they also have an x in common, so x has to come outside the bracket as well. Now, what do I multiply by 2x to get 4xy? Well, I have to multiply the 2 by 2 to get 4, and I have to multiply the x by y to get the y in there as well. What do I multiply 2x by to get 6x? Just 3. So 2y plus 3. And we'll do our little check. 2x times 2y is 4xy, and 2x times 3 is 6x, which is what we started with, so it must be right. So that's factorising. There's kind of a couple of steps. You want to, first of all, find the biggest thing, I'll just call it a thing. Find the biggest thing that goes into both. It's a bit short, but that is it. To both. And then step 2, it's hard to put into words. You're working out what you have to multiply your number that's outside by to get the numbers that you started with. Do you know what? Maybe it's best not to put it into steps. Never mind. But anyway, that's expanding brackets. You do, as I described, feel free to obviously rewatch the video if you think it'll help. But that's expanding bracket. That's factorising brackets. Hope that helped.